Hey guys, so for my first video, I figured I would do a setup tutorial for let's see, for my first 5,000 lives, I really didn't skip, and as a result of that, I have a lot of rare items like memers, if I can type, stuff like that, Stellarite, King Gold Mine. I have a lot of those, and that's as a result of going to S+5k without skipping. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you how to do that. We'll start with no teleporters. I actually use Utonium for this. This uses quite a bit of expensive items, but as long as you start like by not skipping and you continue to do that, you should have the materials for this probably by around life 1000 or 1500, if I had to guess. The only hard thing about this, I'd say, is the True Overlord devices. But to be honest, those aren't even super necessary. Just as a precaution to this video, you will need to have circus cannons for the setup to work. It is what it is. If you wanted to do this without circus cannons, you could make it with shop items and use a ore collider, but we're not going to do that just for the sake of not using them. So because there's circus cannons, you actually don't have to use a centering conveyor. So we're just going to start off exactly like this, and this is going to be good enough. Excuse me. So you're going to want, after the circus cannon, you're going to want a portable orm flamethrower, and that's because of the frozen eclipse that we're going to be using. You're also going to want an atmospheric steamwork. You're going to want some of these, and you're going to want some of the normal ones as well. The best case scenario is to have 4 of these, but that's a little bit much to ask, so whichever one you have would work. You're going to put that there, and then you're going to start with all your upgraders. So I'm going to start with frozen eclipse. And then, for the sake of the setup, I do use Pizza List, but it's important to note that that is a lower upgrader than if you use the Saturated Catalyst and the Pizza Bombarder. It has a lower multiplier, so keep that in mind if you're making a longer setup, but it doesn't really matter for this one. You're going to want that, you're going to want this. Ancient Coliseum is pretty good for this setup. And it's also relatively cheap at the beginning. You're going to want an Astral Setter. Zarbamba, if you can afford it later on during your playthrough, is good, but it's not entirely necessary, and that's just for a couple of reasons. In terms of fusions, you're going to want Azure Spore, and then you're also going to want Quantum Clockwork. And basically these 7 upgraders, just like this, are enough to get you enough money, if that makes sense. So you're going to want a Resetter at this point, and assuming your second sacrifice, you're going to want the final upgrader. If not, you can use the ultimate sacrifice, but obviously there's a couple downsides to that. We're going to use a green teleporter sender, and then you're going to use some wall segments. If you end up getting to a later life, like around 4,000 or 4,500, I had to alter this a few times, just so it gave more money, if that makes sense, but this is going to be plenty for our purposes. So you're going to want to select all of this, you're going to want to move it, and then put the original back, obviously. And then you're going to want to put one more of those. Maybe here. And then after this one, you're going to put your refuter. You're going to put an orange teleporter sender. And then we're going to do wall segments again. And then optimally, if you, assuming you're like an older player, you may have more collectibles and things like that. I started the save file a few days ago, so I don't have any extra teleporters. If you have like the Sand Shark teleporters or the Shortcake teleporters, you can actually use those, and it's about as effective. But because I don't have them, I'm not going to be using them. if you were to have those, you would basically do another line just like this, but instead I'm going to use a turn. So for here, you're going to want to put a portable flamethrower as well. Since the circus cannon kind of centers the ore, you're not going to need to put one on both sides. You can if you want, if you have extra, but I personally didn't at the time. So after the orange, you're going to put the orange one over here. Not rage, you're going to want orange. There we go. Gonna put it here. Then you're going to want a circus cannon. And then since I only have 2 of these, I'm going to have to use the other one, which is the gravitational gear work. And I believe if you just throw it like anywhere around here, it should work. Yeah, like that should do the job. You're going to select all of these again. And you're going to put them over here. Maybe not. I'm missing ancient coliseums, I believe, but at the time I did have 4, so I'm just going to substitute that for something else. But if you do have extra ancient coliseums, you're going to want to use those instead. It's going to provide like not a crazy higher multiplier, but it's definitely significant enough that it's worth it. Let's see, what do I have instead? Guess I'll just throw this in there. You should have enough for this. If not, you know, just substitute something. Whatever works. I believe I also am out of astral setters because of the requirements for certain enchanted items. But like I said, the specific items aren't incredibly important as long as you have upgraders that are like similar or higher multiplier. Like you should have at least one of these, so I'll use one of these for the setup, you know. This line can be this line, excuse me, can be a little bit longer, so I'm gonna throw in a deadly spore just for the sake of having. And then you're gonna want 3 conveyors. Excuse me, you're gonna want a black dwarf. If you don't have the black dwarf, your setup's gonna end here, and I'll show you how much that makes. Excuse me, if you want to see this. Forgot this here as well. Don't forget this portable flamethrower. What this does is give a higher multiplier to the frozen eclipse, which is times 20 during the day and times 40 at night. It's going to be 24 and 44 respectively, or maybe 25 and 45 if the ore's on fire. You can also put the ore sparkling with a flaming Schrodinger, but it's probably not worth it because of the azure spores. You're going to get much less of a multiplier. If you don't have the black dwarf, like I was saying, you're going to want to use just these 3 lines. You're going to end it here. This alone is making OCD, which should be enough to skip if I'm right. Hold on 1 second. So OCD is enough to skip, or excuse me, to rebirth until about life 3600. So this setup will last you until then. And then at that point you should have a black dwarf, so we're going to change it a little bit for that scenario. What you're going to do is move this all the way to the edge again. And then you're going to put some basic conveyors right here. Or, you know, whatever conveyor you want. We can use, let's see, Discord. Sure. Gonna want some wall segments, and then another cannon. Like I said, if you don't have cannons, you can just use colliders. It's just gonna have, the downside is that you're gonna have to use shop items, so it's gonna be a little bit slower, but not much. After this, like I said, we're just going to copy this one more time, and we can use all of these the same exact way, basically. Maybe not. Let's see. Alright, we're going to put these here. And then obviously you're gonna move all this so it lines up. The dog is going crazy out there, man. And then anyway, yeah, after this you're gonna want to put another portable flamethrower is important, so don't forget that. But that's gonna go right there. And then you're gonna put your furnace. And as you can see, this is making UVG. And UVG is actually enough to rebirth until about 4,700, according to the wiki. And DVG is even higher. That's enough to go to like 5,200. So yeah, this is the setup I used pretty much almost exactly, except for I had more of you know, certain items like Astro Setter and Ancient Coliseum, just because I hadn't used them for the enchantment items. But yeah, this is basically it. Thank you guys for watching, and let me know if you end up using this. Thank you.